What's going on? Damn, it's good to be back. It's been a while, guys. Missed you. This is such a special community to Rachel and I. The Ylopo community, what Howard and G have built here, and Gabe and Barry and everybody else, it's so freaking amazing. It means a ton to us. We're just so excited to be here with all of you guys today. When I got into real estate in 2017, one of the biggest surprises I had was that I noticed that on the listing side of things, agents seemed very process-driven. They had it totally dialed in. They had a nice presentation. They had their value proposition figured out. They'd go out, go through this guide with people. They'd handle their objections. They would articulate their value proposition, and then they would discuss commissions, and they would sign the seller right there. But on the buy side, it was kind of just this weird kind of free-for-all. It's like buyer agents would just go show a house and then kind of just adopt this person as a client. It didn't make a ton of sense to me. When we got going in real estate, we decided very quickly we're going to divide up our business. Rachel was going to focus on the seller side of things. I was going to focus on the buyer side. We ran this for 6 years in this way. And I quickly realized that if I was going to hit the transaction volume I wanted to hit, I was going to have to create some processes and workflows on the buy side that were almost similar to the list side to get to the production that I wanted to get to. So today, I'm going to share with you what those are. There's a lot of myths, a lot of kind of bullshit lines our industry says. I put a few of them up there on the screen. Crap like list to last. Everyone ever heard that? I hate that shit. Top producers only list. You're top producer, you don't work with buyers, you're too cool for that. And new agents are the only people that actually work with buyers. There's a sliver of truth to all of these things, but they don't show you the whole story. The reality, you can create a massive freaking business off buyers, guys. Everyone always asks me, they say, Mike, how do I get more listings? Guess what? Work with more buyers. Your listings 5 years from now are your buyers today. I cannot stress that enough. When we got going, I started scaling this business up on the buyer side. I added a showing partner. I'm not going to get into that today. We can talk about that some other time or at happy hour. But what we did is we were able to build the buyer volume, for me personally, up to $40 million a year in back-to-back years, just solely off buyers. So this shit works if you figure out the process and you have the discipline to actually execute it. So the first part I want to jump into, we only got 20 minutes, so we got to go real fast here. How do you set the consultation? There is a major skill gap for most agents on setting up a home tour or setting a buyer consultation. I want to talk about that. A home tour is the old way of doing things. If you've been listening to the news, like we all have, you know that that's not going to be an option for you anymore. You have to get people in your office and on your turf going through the buyer process with them. So how do you do that? How do you take the person that inquired about a house on your Ylopo site and get them into your office? Well, there's a couple things that I want to make sure I understand. I put 3 of them up there on the screen for you. I want to understand their motivation first. Why the heck does this person want to make a move? Why is this important to them? If I set an appointment and I haven't qualified their motivation, I've massively failed. That person's not going to show up. I'm not going to have the rapport I need with them to actually convert. So understanding the motivation is the single most important thing that you can flush out in that phone call. The second thing, personal connection. I know that real estate happens around major life events: divorce, death, marriage, having kids, downsizing, upsizing. All these kind of life events dictate when people are actually going to buy a house. I need to understand what is happening in this person's world that is creating the urgency for them to actually buy homes sometime now or in the near future. That's also going to help you with the connection and understand their motivation together, okay? The last part, are they actually qualified to buy a house in my market? You could totally understand the motivation, you could connect with them, but if they're not qualified, you're really just spinning your wheels and wasting both of your times to actually set up an appointment. So those are the 3 things you really got to figure out. How do you figure out if they're qualified? Well, a lot of buyer agents, they make the mistake of waiting to meet with a buyer until that buyer is pre-approved. I do not subscribe to that theory one bit. Instead, I just ask really good questions, and at the end of asking those questions, I have a pretty good idea on if they get approved or not. And more often than not, it turns out to be right. When you ask the financial questions is everything. If you ask a financial question 10 seconds in that call, what do you think is going to happen? Real freaking weird, right? What's your credit score? Well, I'm not telling you that shit. I don't even know who you are, right? But when you get 6, 7 minutes in, you understand their motivation, you understand why they're making a move, what the life event is, now you've got permission to ask those kind of questions. What I first want to understand is what's their current living situation. I'm looking for one of two things. Do they have a house to sell? If so, awesome. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to set a listing appointment at their house, help them figure out their equity, and then figure out how they're going to sequence that into buying a house. If they don't own a home, if they're renting, then I'm going to ask some questions about payment relevancy. How much are they paying right now? In my market in the Northwest, if you can't afford $4,000 a month, and that sounds fucking shocking, you're not buying a house. Crazy, right? So if they're paying $1,500 a month in rent, we have a problem. It doesn't mean they can't pay $4,000, but I need to ask some better questions to understand if that's even possible. So that's how I start the qualification of whether they actually can buy a house or not. If they can, like if that payment is close to what it would cost to buy a house on what they're paying in rent, then I move forward with the appointment. If it's not, I'll challenge the thing. I'll just say, hey, in our market, I'm going to hit you with some hard truth right now. We know that it's about $4,000 to buy a home. Would you be able to afford that? Is it a payment you'd be comfortable with? And they're either going to say, hell no. And at that point, you're not going to set the appointment, obviously. Or they're going to say, yeah, I think I could probably make that work. And great, then go ahead and set the appointment at that point. So you got to make sure it's going to make sense for both parties. You don't just want to smash people into an appointment. If you just set the appointment to build up your score, like to just get more appointments on the board, it's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help them. It's not going to turn into a transaction. So I'm not a robot when it comes to language patterns. I know that Dale and Brian shared some awesome language patterns today that were also not robotic. Awesome job, guys. What I want to share with you is a couple more language patterns that I've found success with over the years on how to actually get the person closed on the phone. The first question I ask, and I ask this 5 or 6 minutes into the phone call, is, Mr. Buyer, if the ideal home came on the market in the next 30 days, would you want to go look at that home or would you pass up on that opportunity? This is an easy question for them to understand. If you ask a buyer, like, hey, when are you thinking about making a move? They don't know, like that's an overwhelming question to try to answer. But if you just simply ask them if they want to go see the house, that's very easy for them to answer relatively accurately. Usually I get a yes or a no, like really straightforward. If it's a no, I just simply ask, what would keep you from wanting to go look at that home? Why would you not feel ready? I want to understand that. At that point, the person's probably going to be a nurturer. Like I'm going to check in with them every couple of weeks until they're actually ready to meet and bring them more value. If they say yes, hell yeah, Mike, I'd go look at that house, then great. Now we're going to go ahead and set that consultation. Credit to Robbie T from Hatch Coaching. Some of you guys know Robbie. He has trained our team and lots of other teams on this language pattern. It works really, really well. I call this the squeeze question because it really forces the conversation to go one of two ways, okay? The second script I want to share with you is what I call the closing script. I've noticed in our industry that we're really awkward when it comes to articulating a buyer consultation. We call it a buyer consultation, which to me is really like an industry term. It's not really something we should be using with clients. Or we call it like a strategy session, which sounds like you're going to sell me some gym membership or something weird like that. So I don't like putting a name to it. I just like articulating what it is. And the script that I use, I've done this hundreds of times, it just works. Mr. Buyer, the next step would be for us to meet for 25 to 30 minutes, have me walk you through the home buying process from start to finish, get you up to speed on the market, and identify exactly what we're looking for in your next home. I'm articulating what we're doing. There's 3 big things, okay? Walking them through the home buying process, getting them up to speed on the market, and identifying what we're looking for. And then we use what I call the A or the B close. I don't use some passive close when I'm like, how does that sound? Or would you find value in that? I know you're going to find value in it. I'm just going to close you. How's 4 o'clock today or Saturday at 6? It's the A or it's the B. Which one? It works if you do it, trust me. As a little bonus, once you book those appointments, I want you to send a couple of videos. I got 2 videos that go out once I schedule an appointment. I use Calendly. Some of you guys might use that. In Calendly, you can build automations where when you book an appointment, it automatically sends the video to the person. The first video, it's about 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. It just explains the 4 phases of buying a house, which I'm going to share with you today. Just get them watching your video before you meet. The second video, why the Novak team? Why are they going to work with me? What's my track record? What's my social proof? And that one's about 8 to 10 minutes. What I've discovered is that winning the room before they even get there is essential to signing people. If you can get them to watch your videos, your show rate is going to go through the roof, and more often than not, they're going to sign as well because you've already built trust before they got there. It's super important. So in the consultation, what are we going to do? Well, I kind of shared with you the big 3 things that we're going to go over, but what's the timeline of it? The first 5 to 10 minutes is really just rapport building. What I found is it's really awkward if you just start going into presentation sales mode. Like just sit there, connect with the person, kind of reaffirm what you already learned on the phone call, and get to know them better. Really, really important. Once you've kind of gone through that, you've had some small talk, some conversation building, you've built rapport, go ahead and pull out your buyer's guide. We're at Real Brokerage. Our president, Sharon, the other day shared that 89% of buyer agents do not have a buyer's guide. That's a huge problem. This is where you need the buyer's guide, is at this part of the process. In your buyer's guide, it should clearly articulate what the journey is to buy a house, what's that process, and what are you going to do to help them get through it. I'm going to share with you some of the key pages from our buyer guide today. Ylopo has done an awesome job. Barry and Gabe are all on top of this for you guys, and they've got a great buyer guide coming for you guys as well. It's fully customizable, they shared earlier. I can't wait to see the finished product. So it takes about 20 minutes to go through the buyer's guide. And these timelines are really subjective based on the personality type. Sometimes you get a high I in there, it might be an hour-long consultation. You get a high D in there, or sometimes an S, we're like 25 minutes in and out the door. The last 10 minutes or so is just signing paperwork, 5 to 10 minutes of signing paperwork, agreeing to work together, and moving on to the next steps, okay? So, what does the buyer guide look like? This is the high-level view of buying a home. This is the meat and the potatoes of the buyer consultation, okay? I spend probably 10 to 12 minutes on this page. I'm gonna fly through it for you real quick because we only have a limited amount of time today. I'm gonna tell it to you just like you're a buyer. Mr. Buyer, I break the process into buying a home under a simple to understand 4-phase approach. The first phase is what I call the preparation phase. That's what we're doing right now. The second phase is the home search phase. We're out actively looking at homes. The third phase is the offering phase. We're putting offers in on properties. And the fourth and final phase is what I call contract to close. That's what happens when you get your offer accepted to when you get keys and possession to the property. Now, let's jump into phase 1. First step, just to get to meet you face to face, get to know you better, make sure I understand what your goals are, and I'm going to be a good fit to help you as an agent. I want to walk you through the home buying process so you know what to expect. Buying a home is a huge financial decision, Mr. Buyer. It's my job as your agent to make sure you're fully prepared. What am I doing? I'm being assumptive, right? I'm already your agent. We haven't even signed anything yet. Super important. We're going to identify the must-haves. That's the non-negotiables the property has to have, or you wouldn't buy it. And we're going to identify what the nice-to-haves are, the bonuses. Maybe it's a fenced backyard or something like that. It doesn't have to have it, but if it's got it, it's icing on the cake. We're going to sign the professional services agreement and the buyer agency agreement. That just makes me your agent. I can show you homes, give you real estate advice, and write a contract for you. The last step is to get pre-approved for your mortgage. I want to make sure you understand, Mr. Buyer, exactly how much your payment's going to be on different houses I'm going to show you so you don't have payment shock or payment surprise when we find a home you love. Do you have any questions on phase 1? Super important you ask that question. If you're going to get an objection to signing an agreement, it's going to be right here. Just flush it out right then and there. Don't keep going. Address it right there. Phase 2, the home search phase. A big part of my job, Mr. Buyer, is to proactively go on the hunt for new listings for you. I'm not just going to passively sit by and wait for you to send me a link to a Redfin listing that you want to go check out. I'm going to set you up in my website, which is Ylopo. I'm going to send you new listings as soon as they come on the market. I'm also going to be watching back on markets. I've got FSBOs I'm watching for sale by owners. I'm looking at expired listings in the area you like, all these different things to find your property. Once a home comes on, we want to go show you that home right away. If a home comes on the market, I want to make sure that you do not hold back on asking me to go see it. It is in no way an inconvenience for me to go out and show you that home. That's my full-time job as a real estate agent. I have a showing partner, so one of us is available 7 days a week to show you houses. I don't want you going to open houses. It's important you say that too, because your buyers are going to bounce around to open houses, potentially get grabbed by another agent if you don't say that, okay? Frame it. The last step, I want you to fall in love with the house. When you say this part of step 2, their sales walls just go down. I want you to truly love the home you're gonna buy. And you know what I've discovered, Mr. Buyer, is when you feel in your gut and your heart, that's when it's the right one, not till then. Sometimes that takes a couple days. More often than not, it takes a couple months in the slow inventory market to find you the right house. Do you have any questions on that? After every part of this, every phase, I'm asking if they have questions, okay? They all of a sudden feel like they can trust you and like you're not going to smash or force them into a house. Every buyer is scared shitless that you're going to push them into making a decision that they don't want to make. This will help massively when you talk about this. The third phase is the offering phase. When we find a home that you love, Mr. Buyer, I'm going to be the guy that writes the offer for you. I'm not going to just pull a number out of thin air and say, hey, let's offer $10,000 off this house. It sounds like a nice rounded number. That shit doesn't work. I'm instead going to pull comparable sales. Homes that are similar age, shape, condition, that are close in proximity to the home that you like. I'll show you how much they were listed for, how much they were sold for. I'm also going to look at days on market. How long has the home been listed? We know that the psychology of a seller is very different in the first week it's been listed versus 3 or 4 weeks after sitting on the market. From there, I'll tell you how much we should offer on the home and why, and at that point, I will submit your offer. I will negotiate back and forth with the listing agent who represents the seller. I will be representing you as the buyer. Again, I'm affirming and assuming that I'm their agent. If we get an agreement on price, terms, and conditions, that's called mutual acceptance in real estate. At that point, you've got a contract to close. Nobody else can buy the house. Any questions? We're good. Okay, cool. Fourth phase, contract to close. Once you get your offer accepted, we help you get your earnest money deposit and we open up escrow. The next step from there is to get a home inspection done. We do recommend getting a home inspected, even in a competitive market. A home inspection costs $400 to $600 in the Seattle area. Just make sure you've budgeted those funds. At that point, the appraisal occurs, just a third-party evaluation of the home to make sure you know exactly, or that your lender knows exactly how much it's worth, because that house is the collateral to the loan that they're giving you. At that point, you get your final loan approval, which is just the underwriter really signing off on the mortgage. At that point, we go back with you one more time to the house, and we do what we call a final walkthrough. We just want to put our eyes on the home one last time before any money changes hands, make sure everything looks good. We want to make sure all the appliances are still there, the home's reasonably clean, and the seller's actually moved out. I've had all those problems before. Because on closing day, what I know is that it's really hard to go back and fix a problem once everyone's gotten paid. So if there's an issue, I want to know about it beforehand. Are you okay with doing that, Mr. Buyer? Again, get them to start agreeing with you. It's very important. From there, you're going to sign the loan documents. You don't own the house in Washington State when you sign the loan documents, just one of the final steps in the process. And then you actually get keys on closing day. You can spend most of your time, guys, going through this one page in your buyer's guide and bring massive frickin' value to that buyer. You could probably sign them right here if you wanted to. The other really important pages I go over, the buyer agent versus listing agent. I articulate that a listing agent is there to represent the seller in all negotiations, to do the marketing on the listing, and to get online, hold open houses, things like that. I explain to them the buyer agent is responsible for helping them get through all the steps I just went over with them, and representing the buyer in all negotiations. In our team, in Washington State, it's legal to do dual agency. On our team, we don't do it. We don't think it's in the best interest of the client. We tell them that, hey, if it's one of my listings you want to offer on, I'll have to hand you off to one of the other agents in my team. I can't represent you and the seller at the same time because there's a conflict of interest that exists there. And I use the analogy of the prosecutor and the defense attorney. It's like having them be the same person. It doesn't make any sense. It's simply not in your best interest. Then I go over closing costs. Almost every buyer, I ask them, I'm like, hey, have you ever heard of closing costs? They all say yes. I say, awesome, do you know what it means? No, without exception, okay? So you gotta make sure that you go over this with them so they know what to expect. I start on the seller side because it's the most expensive part of it. Seller in Washington State pays excise tax. It's like a shitty sales tax on real estate in Washington State. They typically pay the real estate commissions. Emphasis on typically. They pay the title insurance policy, prorated dues and taxes, and half the escrow fee. Total's about 8%. It's pretty expensive to sell a house, Mr. Buyer. That's why you want to make sure you love the home you're going to buy, because you need to be happy there for at least 5 years so you don't sell the home and lose money. On the buyer side of things, typically it's 1.5% to 2%. Most of those fees are going to be prepaid taxes, prepaid insurance, lender fees, the appraisal, credit reporting fees, all of those types of things. Our team happens to charge a $495 professional services fee, and I tell them that's the only fee they're gonna more than likely pay us, okay? I also go through offer variables. I don't have time to go through this today, like we got 2 minutes to go, but these are all the different things that I suggest discussing with your buyer if your market is competitive. This does a couple of things for you. It shows massive competency. You understand what the hell you are doing, and you're gonna help them get their offer accepted. In our market, it's not uncommon to offer 2 or 3 times before you get an offer accepted. You have to frame the mindset of that buyer that if they don't win the first house, not a big deal, we'll keep going. These are different things that are gonna help your offer stand out and really be a strong winning offer in the eyes of a seller. Then we get to the close, my favorite part. Next step, Mr. Buyer, is to decide to work together. Would you like me to be your real estate agent and help you find a home? Guys, when you ask this question, just shut up. Don't fill the dead space. Every agent, they just want to fill it because they're so nervous. Just ask that question, Mr. Buyer. The next steps are to decide to work together. Would you like me to be your real estate agent, represent you, and help you find a home? Hell yeah, I do. Awesome. Let's sign some paperwork. Walk them through the buyer agency agreement, walk them through the professional services, the disclosures, get them all signed, get them pre-approved, hand it off to the lender, that's the next step, and get out and find their dream house, okay? That close works so freaking well. You just have to stare them right in the freaking eye when you ask if they want to work with you. They're just going to look right back at you and go, yeah, where's the pen, right? It's that easy. So, couple simple action items for you guys because we're out of time. First step, you got to develop your buyer's guide. The fact that 89% of buyer agents don't have a buyer's guide scares the shit out of me. Like, we need to do a better job of articulating our value to buyers as an industry. Ylopo is way ahead of the game on this for you. I love what they're doing. I've seen it. It's going to be badass. I would just totally take that, rip it off, and duplicate it. I can totally share ours with you too if you want to see it. The other action item, you got to role play this shit, guys. You can't just show up and practice this on your clients. That's not going to work. You're not going to sign those people. My showing partner who just learned how to do consultations, she's been with me for 15 months. We role played this consultation about 30 times before she got a first consultation in person. And guess what? She's signed every frickin' buyer she's met since then. But you have to practice it. You have to learn these proven language patterns. You have to have that confidence to close the person. You have to be able to communicate your value. And then role play how to set the appointment, of course, as well. You got to do that. You can't just wing it. Don't practice on the phone.